Hi, the topic today is how to be highly effective, and I'm focusing on the Unsinkable, the book on Unsinkable. I'm holding it in the hand. The Adventures from the 1910s, the Unsinkable, written by Daniel Anyanwu. So I'm really happy when I, went through this book. It illustrates a lot of things because to be honest, we are the luckiest, uh, we belong to the luckiest generation. We are the luckiest people in the sense that, we came when everything was demonstrated. Our arrival, you know, came after the coming of Christ because it is this unthinkable, that makes me to understand this. You know, Ironically, she wrote this book. I didn't know at the bearing, but I can draw inspiration from this book, The Unsinkable. It's a wonderful book. I can draw inspiration. The inspiration I'm drawing is that now what David stated close to 4,000 years ago came to happen 2,000 years ago, and now this is another 2,000 years after it happened. So we have information on our fingertips. We have everything on our fingertips. We are complete. Sometimes they call us the season of complete. The seventh, which means the completion. So we are the luckiest generation because something that used to be a story was demonstrated and we saw it. And the funny thing is that the story precedes everything. Now, if you study science or look at mathematics or equations and other things, you will come to understand with me that a thought, forms a story, and that story is what is illustrated in science. Science is just an illustration of a story. Science is just to give back into a story. Science is just, that's the importance of story. Like this story, the Unsinkable, is greater than science. It comes before science. But what it is that we focus on science, but we don't focus on the story. So because we don't understand that, before you put something into a practical thing, into a scientific, method or analysis, it has to be a story. It has to be a thought. For instance, when we say that what you do today determines what will happen tomorrow, or determines your position tomorrow, or determines the circumference of your influence. You can see it in equation. You can see it in mathematics. The circumference, the diameter, and the circumference. The diameter determines the circumference. Or alternatively, the radius determines the circumference. So this is a statement, one side, but scientists or mathematicians put it down. So it's like, transferring electrical energy to mechanical energy, or to electrical to chemical energy. It's just like, transposing, moving it from one unit to the other, or moving like from solid to liquid to gas. So that is the way the knowledge, moves from transverses the other field of knowledge. So we are properly equipped. We are comfortable and we are properly equipped. The Unsinkable, how inspired me, it illustrates what David said. Like David stated in his Psalm 91. Psalm 91, he says that 1,000 might fall at your side, 10,000 fall at your right hand. Nothing will happen to you. Now, this is, a story or a statement made by a person of David, who has a military background. And now, after 2,000 years, Jesus Christ again, demonstrated it. Now, he didn't say it on, orally, although David demonstrated, but he brought it home. He made it so that we can relate with when he will calm the storm in the ocean. When he was in a boat in a Galilee and was passing a lake, and he was passing the ocean or the sea, and there was a huge storm. The storm, was almost, swamping the boat. It was tearing the boat aside. The gale was heavy wind. And he was sleeping. He was totally calm, unperturbed. But the apostles, had to wake him up and say, "Look, Master, we're about to sink and you're sleeping." And he told the storm, "Be calm." And there was calm. And he told them, "You have to go to faith." That is practically the way it is. So on the other side, the Old Testament is telling you about that you are unsinkable. That's what David is saying. When he says 10,000 will fall at your side, then 10,000 will fall at your right hand. And you will not, but it will not come near you. That is the way it is. And then Jesus Christ demonstrated it. So we are complete. We are the luckiest generation because we saw faith, and we saw how faith was, used to build on, practical things which we can relate to. So now, if you are naive, it's just your personal choice. So being naive is a personal choice. If you don't want to know, you want to know, because the God has given us everything. We are complete. So the unsinkable illustrates our relationship with our environment, because I'm going to break it down. So it relates with our own environment. It relates even to our own personal health, our health on itself, what goes in our body. And it also relates to what goes outside of us, the social, the environment. It tells us the thing. So where I'm going to celebrate now, I've been able to draw you to the Old Testament, what David said, and then I've been able to bring you to a New Testament where Jesus Christ demonstrated it. And now I'm trying to draw it so that you can, to bring it home, so that you can use it to see what I'm talking about. Now, this singular story, Jesus Christ, walking on the boat, calming the storm, it illustrates us. But we find it difficult to, relate with it. And that is where I'm coming in now. Now, see, the storm in our life, the ocean is like a storm in our life. It is always there. Whether you are holy, whether you are naive, whether you are not intelligent, whether you are bright, regardless of your circumstance, regardless of your situation, you're going to face a heavy storm. And that storm we look at it as probably a flowing water. But that flowing water, it signifies, it denotes another thing, which I'm saying that it denotes the practicality of what we're seeing now. The practicality of that is you find yourself in the world where there is anger. You find yourself in the world there is bitterness and hatred. You find the world where there is financial loss. You find yourself in a situation where people are murdering other people. You find a situation where people are taking gun against another person. These things are, you see, it uses the flow of water to illustrate, a flow of the practicality of what we're seeing every day in our life. You come out from in front of your door, you see people fighting, You come out, you see people murdering other people, you see people stabbing other people, you see this vagaries of immorality and vagaries of things that are happening. That, you see prejudice, So the water that you are seeing that Christ was, selling on is like, is the prejudice, hatred, envy, jealousy, murder, these, big things, that are unbelievable are the flow of water that Jesus Christ was riding on. And that is the same thing you're riding on. So you might decide to be naive, that is your business. But the practicality of it is that the world you are seeing is full of envy, is full of jealousy, it's full of greed, it's full of dirty things, it's full of murder, people planning murder, people trying to arrest people doing great. So if you can't practicalize it, if you can't relate with this things, it's difficult for you. So you'll make yourself very vulnerable if you are not relating to the story, told in that way, to practicalize it, to bring it to the meaning where ordinary person can pick it up and use it. So what you can pick up and use it is that you are in the air or in the water. See a boat. A boat is something that floats on the water. So you are floating on hatred, envy, and jealous, even murder and death and other things. So that is the practicality of life. So, and we are being tested on these things every day. But the unsinkable there is telling you is that is who you are. You can be, you are unsinkable. And Jesus Christ demonstrated it, that even the undercurrent water, flowing across under the boat, this the undercurrent is hatred. The flow, undercurrent flow is hatred, envy, and jealous. Greed, financial loss, telling lies, betrayal. We see in every day. So if you try to say, downplay it, it's at your own risk. So that is the world we are in, and it's been like that from the beginning of time to today. So it's not gonna stop. So that is the water. So for us, ordinary people, we see water, what we drink. One moment, I'm feeling this again. We see water. Yes, water is life. Water is what we drink. But it also means another thing. What water means is, is a fluid, a flowing something, and that flowing something is hatred, envy, jealousy, murder, betrayal, mistrust, financial loss, greed, love of money, extreme love of money. These things are what we're floating on. But if you understand what I'm saying now, you begin to understand that was what David was pointing out. David was a military man. He sees this world from the prison of military, from the prison of war. But Christ, when he came, he was a civil person. He sees it in a civil manner, whereby you are riding a boat. But practically, that boat is not the wooden boat. It's you yourself. It's the flesh. I don't know whether I'm making meaning. So I might not make meaning, but think about it. So it's a metaphor telling you that instead of water you are floating on is hatred, envy, jealousy, murder, betrayal, mistrust, slander, greed. These things are what you are floating on. So if you don't understand this, then you are being naive. Then you are not relating with the practicality of life. And that is the essence of this unsinkable. This unsinkable is telling you, look, it doesn't mean that you won't die. Everybody dies. That one is out of equation. Death is out of equation. What I'm saying that, even in your personal life, you might have ill health, you might have pen, you might have BP, you might have cholesterol, you might have different. These things are floating, they're like the water floating along the current. So, but what you say that you can't be, you can't be, you are unsinkable. That is what who you are. Just as David said, you're unsinkable when he's telling the story of 10,000 will fall by their side, 10,000, will fall by your right hand side, and they will not come near you. That is the unsinkable there in the Old Testament. This is also the unsinkable in the New Testament, and that's why when my daughter wrote this book, I was saying, wow, what kind of imagination, what kind of coincidence is this? It's trying to bring to you, the practicality, who you are. But if you are doubting it, you've got to know how you interpret it, because we all are gifted differently. So you see how you internalize your perception is very, very important. That's why like I stated now, I said what you do today, affects what to happen, where you'll be tomorrow. So your perception, gives you the circumference of influence, the circumference of your survivability and the ability to relate to your own environment. So your perception, your imagination, your perception, gives you the range, the radius, of where you can go. So you cannot live beyond your belief. You cannot act beyond your environment. So your environment is not different from you. So if your environment is 360, 360 is the range where you can go. So if your environment is unlimited, that is the way you can go. So that's why I was telling you that, look, the mathematics we are studying in the school, or engineering or science, they came from a thought, this very basic thought. And that is how it is. So I do tell people, say, look, scientists are not different people. Scientists came from the religious teaching, from the stories. So most great scientists are people who understood stories, because the story that was told could be put in a mathematical form or put in it in equation form. And then we're seeing it, or we're being surprised, but it's not a surprise or something. It is a story that is there. Even when Albertson was talking about electrons and other things, we saw Jesus Christ one was walking on the sea. When the apostles were in the water, the one they were crossing the water, and there was storm too, and Peter wanted to walk. There was something in person. It's something electron. There was electron. If you study how electron, is seen, nobody knows where it came from. Nobody knows where it's all of a sudden. But when there is activity, electron starts coming in. It's the same thing we are talking about when we're saying that. During Peter walking on the sea, and all of a sudden, somebody came out from nowhere and going nowhere. Nobody knew where it was going. Nobody knew where it was, and yet it was persistent there. So when we are glorifying science, I say, look, you better glorify people who can bring out the story, because it is the story that was brought out that the scientists, the engineers, translated into equation and put into equation, so that we can calculate it, and then we can build aircraft, build other things, build velocity, build up all these things. And the main people is the story, and this story comes in this form of this unsinkable. Now, and then our scientists, after reading this unsinkable, will put this very story into equation. And then if it is put into equation, me and you begin to say, oh, this is this. But the story is already there 2,000 years, 4,000 years, 6,000 years ago. So I applaud writers, because the writers were able to bring out the thought. And then a scientist will read this story and put it in an equation form, in a scientific way, so that, you can relate with it. Just like the story of Unsinkable, I am trying to make you to relate with what David was saying, even though David was viewing it from a different context as a military man. And then the same thing was, brought forward after like 4,000 years, brought forward by Jesus Christ. And then he demonstrated it. He lived it. And that is who we are. So we have to take advantage of the information we have. We have to take advantage of the knowledge we already have. They are useful. So when you face challenges in life, you have to know that that is what it is. So the challenges are there, was there before us, and it's going to continue forever. So the thing is that your ability, to bring these things together, to consolidate them, makes you be able to feather wither the storm of life. The storm of life is in form of bad health. It could be, you have the high BP. You could have blood, something wrong in the blood, or cholesterol, or whatever, something. You could be having a muscle pull. You could be having an arthritis. You could be having a headache. All these things, these are the floating thing that the boat was floating on. But it's saying why these things are happening, in the circumferences of where you are staying, it's not going to sink you. And it calls you unsinkable because Jesus Christ is inside of you. Just like Jesus Christ was inside the boat, the same way you are the boat. You are the boat, Jesus Christ is inside of you, and you can't sink. So this is the way I am looking at it. So you could look at it in a private way. You can look at it in an external way, in the societal way, whereby you got to understand that the flowing water, which boat was floating, is the bitterness, the envy, the anger, the murder, the hatred, the jealousy, the greed, perpetrated in the world today, and is saying all of it. You got to float on it. You'll be tested on it, and you'll be floating on it. But I'm here to tell you that it's not gonna sink you. You're not gonna. You're gonna remain afloat. But what I'm saying, it doesn't mean you wouldn't die. When time, death is separate. When time comes, you'll have to die. But while you're still alive, man, you can do great things. You are unsinkable. Be courageous and be bold, and have the strength to pursue something you want to pursue. Despite what happens in the environment. David stated it very clearly that 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. And then God has told us, be courageous. In front of you, there is God. But it's only the slit that tends to separate it. But if you have insight, beyond it, there's God. So you shouldn't be afraid. Because what really conquers a human being is fear. Because when you're afraid, it diminishes you. It reduces your potential. It reduces the power to maximize who you are. So I'm here to tell you, see, look, despite the vagaries, despite the disturbances, the waves of murder, the waves of hatred, the waves of greed, the waves of jealousy, the waves of envy, beyond that, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There is consistent progress. So you should not bother yourself with them, but it's good for you to know about them, to be conscious of it. But it's not something that will have to prevent you from, taking a big stride to the direction for which you are created to move. So everybody, whether you are bright, whether you are poor, whether you are tall, whether you are wise, we all face the same storm. But the problem is how we can use our imagination, personal perception and personal imagination to relate with these things and conquer it. sorry, to relate with these things and conquer them. So that is the way, you know. A common mathematical equation is drawing. It says that look at a circle. A circle is drawn like this. Now you have the radius. Now the radius determines the circumference. So the same way, your perception determines the circumference of how you deal with issues, how you deal with problems, how you deal with debt, how you deal with a mother, how you deal with losses, financial loss, how you deal with the topsy-turvy economy, how you deal with Boko Haram, deal with you know, different types of people, mad people, like, you know, and different situations in your life. So you should be able to, you know, float on them without being swamped. That is the message. So I'm rounding up. The Unsinkable draws in the inspiration that tells more about you. A story, you know, that went back as 4,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, and then was brought forward 2,000 years ago and was practicalized. And now, that is what we're seeing. That's why I said we are the luckiest generation. Thank you.